Hello everyone, just waiting 1 or 2 additional minutes before starting this event, this webinar dedicated to B2B e-commerce. So we have a lot of people. That's nice to see so many people joining this webinar arranged by Keros around B2B e-commerce insights 2020 and beyond. So now it's 4:02 p.m. Okay, let's wait 1 more minute. 2 more minutes and then we can start. With me today we'll have John. John will present some part of this study we did at a Keros global level, and with me, so he will present some parts dedicated to B2B challenge and expectations regarding customers. Okay, so let's start in 1 minute now. I think this webinar will be also registered, so if you need it and if you need the recording, this is something available. Just wait 1 second before starting now. Okay, I think we can start now. We have 3 minutes delay, so let's move now to the quick introduction and just a quick introduction about this event. So hello everyone, and thank you for joining this webinar. This webinar is the first of a series of 3 webinars. Okay, the first one is dedicated to B2B e-commerce. This is the topic of the day. In 2 weeks, we'll arrange a second one around data-driven omni-channel. And in 2 weeks later, so beginning of June, the last one will be around a very hot topic, which is MDM on product information management, how you can leverage on product information to build an outstanding customer experience. But for the moment, we talk about B2B e-commerce, which is the topic of the day. We'll share today with you the results and the main outputs of a study conducted beginning of 2020 by Keros. And what we did, we analyzed more than 200 B2B e-commerce initiatives worldwide in order to identify main trends, best practices, and winning models. Of course, we won't present the 200, only a selection of them to show you how B2B companies can take advantage of the digitalization, especially in COVID-19 and post-COVID-19 context. And we'll have a quick highlight about it to show how it's also a game changer on an accelerator regarding B2B e-commerce. Agenda, 6 sections. First one, quick Keros introduction in 1 minute. Then what are the key features expected on a B2B platform, and what are the differences on common points with B2C. COVID-19 focus, as mentioned before. What are the change and what are the main impact of this event on B2B e-commerce. Then we'll focus on a couple of figures regarding the maturity of B2B e-commerce, depending on the features, depending on the industries, and depending on the roles, especially in APAC region. The next section, the most important one, is, as mentioned before, a selection of around 10 major initiatives, successful initiatives, done either by large companies or by medium companies, mid-sized companies, illustrating how B2B companies can take advantage of this B2B, let's say, acceleration regarding digitalization. Finally, we will conclude with a quick focus around change management on what could be, for you, potential customers, a potential roadmap. Okay, quick introduction, who we are and what we do. So Keros is a consulting on IT company, focusing on 2 main domains. The first one is data management, and the second is digital experience. In data management, what we do is projects around BI, artificial, but also more and more artificial intelligence, machine learning, and all the topics on how you can leverage on the data collected on the different platforms, online and offline, on the different solutions, ERP, and so on, how you can leverage on this data to improve onto the customer experience or to improve the operations or the backend management. This is not the main topic of the day. The main topic of the day is on our second pillar, which is digital experience. And in digital experience, what we do is we help and we advise companies on what could be the best roadmap, what could be the business plan, what could be the best organization, and what could be the best solution to implement a digital commerce platform. This is the first part, let's say the consulting part, and the second part is more around the implementation. And when we talk about implementation, we talk about B2C, of course, but also about B2B, which is the focus of today. Some quick figures about Kerus. So the company was founded a little bit more than 20 years ago. Maybe you can hear with my accent that I am a French guy. So originally the company comes from France. So 3,000, a little bit more than 3,500 people worldwide, a little bit more than 20 countries of presence. In Asia Pacific, we talk about Shanghai, Hong Kong, Singapore, and Ho Chi Minh City as a delivery center. Revenues a little bit more than 300 million USD in 2019, and strong and continuous growth in terms of market share and in terms of results. And one more time, as mentioned before, company was founded a little bit more than 20 years ago. Let's move now to the first part around B2C and B2B. One of the key message we want to share with you today is the growing alignment between B2B and B2C expectations. And this is definitely one of the major change we had in the last years, which is most of the B2B expectations are more and more aligned on B2C. Of course, the major model, we won't present this initiative, but is of course Amazon Business. And if you check on Amazon Business, you will see that most of the features, most of the functionalities presented on the platform come from B2C. Why? Because the B2C buyers are also some B2C customers. So you really need to take into account the change. The major change happened in the last years, which is the growing and major convergence between B2C expectations and B2B expectations. Let's focus a little bit more. Product catalog and product information. Of course, expectations are basically the same. 360 view, videos, images, large number of attributes, and rich presentation. In a B2B context, it's super important. For a typical B2B company, there was a study conducted 2 years ago showing that a typical B2B product include on boards around 200 attributes. So it's super important to be rich, to be complete, and to give a 360 view to your customers, to your B2B customers regarding the product catalog, same as B2C. I would say even more important than B2C, to have a good product information catalog. Second one is search and ranking and filtering. Very important. When we talk about B2B, we often talk about millions of SKU, much more than B2C. So the way you navigate and the way you access to the product is super important. It's super important in a B2C context, but it's probably, again, a little bit more important in a B2B context. Never forget that 40% of the access to a product information, to a product item, is done through the search engine. So very important to onboard features, and good experience regarding search. Let's continue with content. Content is king, of course. When we talk about content, we talk about animation, we talk about personalization, and we talk about recommendation. These three magic words are very key in a B2B context, because you need to have a website, a platform animated with daily operations and daily information which are frequently updated, especially in a COVID-19 context. So animation of the platform is super important. Personalization, of course, especially when you have a large number of products, and recommendation, because it's a good way to develop cross-selling and upselling. Shopping cart. As for a B2C platform, shopping cart with checkout, different models of checkout, fast checkout, express checkout, are key also in a B2B context. Same for promotions, even if some promotions could be a little bit specific in a B2B environment. At the end, you also need to propose and to push towards your customers, your B2B customers, some promotions, even if they are not 100% aligned with B2C. Order management. Multiple scenarios are one of the major change in the last year, like click and collect, ship from store, ship from warehouse, drop shipping, and so on. So you have now a multiple number of scenarios regarding order management. This is something to take into account also for B2B companies. Customer service. Of course, FAQ on different models of support, but more and more, and you will see some examples today, chatbot. Yes, chatbot can work, and chatbot makes sense also for B2B companies. Okay. Tracking, of course, track and trace is a basic now in e-commerce. It's a basic in B2C, but it's also a basic in B2B. Last point, last but not least, omni-channel. We talk about mobile, we talk about application, we talk about desktop release, okay? Not only one release, but of course, the B2B buyers, they experiment and they use more and more the mobile applications on the mobile side. So it's super important to take into account and also to integrate with the offline experience, no matter exactly what is the offline experience. Of course, in the B2B environment, the offline experience could be a little bit different, could be a little bit specific, especially with the interaction with the sales representative. But you need to take into account when you build a B2B platform, a B2B commerce platform, you need to take into account how you can interact with the, let's say, offline or traditional channels. Okay, same for O2O, offline to offline, but also opposite way, online to offline. Beyond B2C expectations, okay, we can move to the next slide. You need to have, we need to focus on some major differences. Okay, that's why we say sometimes at Keros, we say B2B is a B2C plus platform. When we talk about B2B commerce, it's a B2C plus platform. Why? Several points to illustrate it. First one, decision making, unit and organization are different in a B2B context. In a B2C context, single buyer, B2B context, much more complex organization and decision-making process. Bulk order, we don't talk about only small order quantities, but you need to be able to propose some mechanism involving bulk order or advanced ordering models for B2B companies. The way you transact and the way you interact and you buy the product are different in a B2B environment for B2B companies. Of course, we talk about RFQ, request for quote, but also specific catalog per customer, with specific pricing, specific attributes, sometimes specific stock management. So much more complex regarding the catalog management and the different, let's say, models regarding the way you can acquire a product, acquire some items. Compared to B2C, you have one, let's say, fixed customer, fixed price list, and unique checkout. Payments, of course, B2B companies, they need much more variety regarding the payments. Not only direct payment with credit card or debit card, but we talk also with credits. We talk about with account management. We can mention also prepaid, postpaid. We can mention credit limits depending on the customers. We can mention payment 30 days or 60 days later. So the complexity regarding the payments is a major difference between B2B and B2C. And last one, when we talk about B2B, we talk also about recurring orders. So you need to be able to propose some mechanism to allow your customer to buy more frequently and to buy also in a more efficient way and in a faster way. Okay. Why? Because in a B2B, for B2B companies, sometimes you place order every day or several times per day. This is not the case in a B2C context. Okay, another major difference, and we will see some illustrations, is around specific buying organization. Okay? You don't have just one buyer. You could have procurement. You could have different divisions, subdivisions. You could have plants. So you have a lot of different categories of buyers, and with sometimes also some workflows involved between the different levels of the company. Don't worry. Okay, even if it seems a little bit complex, and yes, it's a little bit more complex than B2C, what is good is all the major omni-channel solutions, they also propose nowadays, they also propose all these features out of the box. So you can access to all these features and you don't have to, let's say, develop and custom a lot of specific features. Okay, let's move to the next one. Multiple also distribution model. Sometimes you have the most complex one with manufacturer, distributor, sub-distributor, retailer, and at the end, B2B customer. Sometimes we can switch one level, you can skip one level, two level, or three level. But What is important to take into account and what is important to keep in mind is the multiplicity of the B2B distribution model. And this is something to take into account when you define your strategy and when you define the model you want to implement. Just to finish this part, you understand that B2B is B2C++, as mentioned before. On this slide, you see around 15 features which are specific to B2B. And it's super important to keep in mind, probably you don't need all of them, but for sure you need some of them if you are active in the B2B domain. Okay, we can talk just to illustrate the key differences. Sales rep functionality. Sometimes it's the sales rep who placed the order. It's not the final customer. Workflow and approvals, already mentioned. CRM integration. Of course, you have your CRM, you have your sales application with all your customers. Makes a lot of sense. We'll see some examples to integrate with this B2B e-commerce platform. Quick ordering on order form upload, as mentioned before. Specification search. B2B payment options. Customer and granular prices with specific catalog per user, request for quote, RFQ, flexible fulfillment, and last point, roles and permissions. I don't want to go in details for each of them, but as you can see, just to conclude this part, yes, definitely B2B is B2B features expected are more and more aligned with B2C, but plus also some specific features to integrate. Let's move to the next part now with my colleague, John. And John will focus on two parts now. The first one is what COVID-19 changed in B2B e-commerce. And second point, he will share with you some key figures collected on the market and what is the maturity level regarding B2B, especially in APAC region. John, floor is yours.
Yeah, thanks. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Thomas? Yeah, yes. Perfect. All right. Just gonna add as well, if you get any question through the presentation, if you look at the bottom of your screen, you get a Q&A, you can ask your question and we will address this question at the end of the presentation. So moving along, what COVID-19 tell us about B2B e-commerce? I think we've probably all been spammed, I'd say, recently with buzzing LinkedIn posts and business-oriented news, but all the COVID crisis is going to be a game changer to the business landscape. To be frank, only time will tell us what's tomorrow going to be like. But I guess a more realistic approach is that most companies will survive from the crisis. We're talking about an unexpected event that happened once or twice in a century, and which in this case should not be considered as a drastic game changer. At Curious, the way we see this crisis is more that this is going to be an accelerator to the digitalization of enterprise processes. There's an interesting interview that you can find on the internet from Jean-Paul Agon, who's the CEO of L'Oréal, where he stated basically that the crisis was easier to handle for L'Oréal since they were already engaged into their digital transformation. So that leads me to the three different types of enterprises that we can identify. On one side, we have the pure online players, which drive 100% of their business activity through digital platform. Obviously, these type of companies have seen huge benefit from this crisis, but this represents a fraction of the enterprise landscape. On the other side, we see pure traditional offline players with non-essential businesses, which have seen massive negative impacts on their business. And finally, where most company falls, at least within the B2C segment, it's omni-channel players. As for B2B, they still represent a moderate percentage of the enterprise landscape. What is interesting here with omni-channel players is that they've been able to mitigate the risk and impact of the COVID-19 crisis by balancing their loss from offline channels or retail with their digital e-commerce platform activity. If we now analyze the capability of these omni-channel players and all that helped them go through the crisis, we can identify 5 major areas. First, anything that is related to the lead generation, I would say. On-site sales team have moved to e-commerce sales under the lockdown. Not to forget as well that in some industries, trade show and events represent a huge part of the business development. And this is unlikely that we see these trade show resurface in the short term. So you're gonna have to ask yourself, how do I promote my products, push corporate information, innovative product content, and answer a single source of truth if I do not have an online catalog? With the current context and difficulties to have on-site resources, it's very complex for enterprise to manage, for example, a single source of truth for their data that could be handled through, for example, multiple Excel spreadsheets, paper-based catalog, and silo in between marketing, sales, operation, and supply teams. End-to-end ordering processes. So basically with the crisis, the whole sales cycle from the sales team to payment, supply, and operation have been disrupted. While some part of this process were already digitalized, a high percentage of the whole process is sometimes manually handled. And this is the case for some of the customers that we see here in Singapore as well. Cloud priority, there is no need to have the team on site to manage your IT infrastructure. And in this case, enterprises can focus on their core activities, which is absolutely vital in time of crisis. And finally, risk management, velocity, and capacity to adapt to market change is key. And digital is a great channel to quickly apply changes, for example, to your catalog assortment, inventory management, marketing and sales activity based on events that are happening outside of your own capabilities, I would say. So this leads me to the next part, which is mainly to share a state of what's the B2B e-commerce in the world and focus on the APAC region. B2B sales were already outclassing B2C sales in 2018 with a mostly 4 times bigger market value estimation. We can see here that the APAC e-commerce is driving the biggest revenue in the world. So I understand, and I'll put a comment on that. This is a bit of a blind slide in a way that it's important to keep in mind that China is capturing most of its shares. On the other side, though, there is a recent study that is focusing on South Asian businesses, and that stated that they own, for enterprises that own a transactional website for B2B sales, they generated 39% of their total sales online through e-commerce and e-ordering platform, which is a quite decent percentage of the world enterprise revenue. There are obviously different levels of engagement per industry, but even in the most complex businesses you can think of, there's always going to be a part of the business that you can digitalize. For example, if we are referring to the aerospace, you're obviously unlikely to sell an Airbus A380 or a Boeing 777 on the internet, but there is a huge part of the business of these enterprises that is dedicated to MRO. So basically MRO is anything around maintenance and repair, which go through spare parts. And spare parts by definitions are consumable, like you would get, an ink cartridge for a printer. And this results in the ability to do recurring order, which can obviously be automated with B2B e-commerce. So I just gave the example of the aerospace, but for many manufacturing industry, all the machinery is impacted with these spare parts as well. So we've just seen what's the B2B e-commerce market size like, but if we know of a more customer-centric approach, I would say, and that we look at today's B2B buyer decision-making journey, as an enterprise, my main focus should be sticking to the user experience expected by my customers. And we can see that 74% of B2B buyers prefer actually to buy online so they can have a full control of the engagement, and that already 30% of these B2B buyers are making half of their purchases online. If we now look at the distribution of buyer's time, there's only 70% of it that is dedicated to meeting with potential suppliers, while 27% of it is dedicated to researching independently online. The question then is going to be, how do you take advantage of this 27% to push your catalog, product information, innovation, and support your customer online? And that's what we've seen previously in the COVID section, is getting an online catalog is more than just driving sales. It's also delivering information to your customer and helping them through their customer journey. Preferred channel of communication for B2B buyers says a lot as well about what's the trend. We can see that offline channels are declining while online ones are increasing. On a side note, you're probably aware or have heard about the millennial generation in the workplace. Some studies estimate that this generation is going to account from 60 to 75% of the workforce by the end of 2020's decade. And basically this millennial generation is digitally born and therefore is going to prefer digital channels if available. Looking at some of the reason a B2B buyer would switch suppliers, the top issues can all be addressed digitally through an e-commerce platform. And that goes for example, reordering or RFQ workflows, product content information, or chatbot for customer services and customer support. 72% of B2B buyers said that digital channels give ease of purchase and the ability to own their sales cycle by engaging when necessary or completing their orders in a self-service mode. Aside from that, it's important to remember once again that going full digital or full online is probably not the answer for most businesses. We've seen before how omnichannel players could mitigate risk in times of crisis by switching from one channel to the other one. In 2020, it's estimated that 54% of online sales will be influenced by digital activities. Yet, we do understand that this is not that easy. Executives see their complexity of business as one of the biggest challenges to run a B2B e-commerce activity. While this is a current study, most of these assumptions, and I believe that is based on our experience discussing with customer as an e-commerce implementation company, these assumptions are nourished mainly by previous bad B2B e-commerce experience. Back a couple of years ago, the technology, I would say, was not there. So as a B2B enterprise, you had the choice in between developing an in-house platform or adapting your business to a third-party B2C platform to your specific processes and workflow. In both cases, this was resulting in high cost, complexity of implementation with over enterprise system. It was obviously time consuming, and we could see a low rate of adoption by internal and external stakeholders. Good news is this time is over now, and there are solutions out there that are suitable to B2B businesses and that can actually reproduce all the workflow or processes B2B business has. Moving along with the B2B use case and initiatives. Thomas?
Okay, thank you, John. Okay, let me move now to the core part of the presentation, which is a specific focus on 10 B2B major initiatives, B2B commerce major initiative, belonging to different industries, different contexts. Could be sometimes some distributors, sometimes some manufacturers, sometimes some pure online players, sometimes some marketplaces acting globally or only in some specific countries. So no matter, we try to have a, let's say, diversity on the variety of initiatives to show you how you can take advantage of digital commerce and how you can transform your business with B2B digital commerce. Depending on the project we will present now, some of them are more a way to illustrate how the expectations of B2B buyers are close to B2C, but also in some cases, we also try to highlight some specific B2B features, how they are mandatory, and how they need to be put in place in terms of features in order to be able to propose an advanced and an outstanding customer experience. We'll see at the end the different type of models, and we try to segment the market in different type of models, depending on your priorities, depending on your industries, and depending on your specific context in your company. Okay, so just here to illustrate the initiatives we took. Okay, some of them are more regarding how to attract and how to generate new lead. Okay, so we'll present 3 initiatives. 2 of them are more around information. Some of them are around support and assistance, how you can provide support and assistance in a B2B platform. We orient the presentation of some of them around transaction, on how to transact, on how to propose a good transaction experience. And we'll finish with a more disruptive approach with some new business models in the B2B domain. Okay, let's move with the first one. The first one is Fast Metals. Okay, so Fast Metals is a US company. Fast Metals is a major US company acting as, of course, in the iron and steels business. Okay, so the company behind Fast Metals, it's a dedicated brand for online, and the company behind is Reliance. It's a major US company acting in this domain. As you can see on this screenshot, they completely use the code and the culture coming from the B2C. Even for a fast metal, for a metal product, they propose promotions, they push coupons and so on, and they push in. They also show in the first screen. They also show the search module. Why search module? Because one more time, when we talk about B2B, sometimes we talk about millions of SKUs. So it's important to give access to different search on different items, different models regarding the search. Search by name, but also search by reference, search by supplier, and so on and so on. So super important to have a good access regarding search management. Another thing also we want to highlight here is, as you can see in the navigation mode, okay, and this is not typical, this is not specific to B2C. You can also shop by usage. Okay, in that case, as you can see, they propose to shop by shape. So it's not only a traditional, let's say, segmentation and traditional classification regarding the product, but you can also push some advanced ways in terms of navigation. And the last screen is more around how to push on the first page a real specific B2B need, which is RFQ, request a quote. Why? Because sometimes you don't want only to place orders online, but with payment, but also you want to do some quotes, some negotiations with the different buyers. Let's move now to Granger. Granger is a second initiative. Okay, it's a global platform. Okay, global platform acting in the supplier industrial product. What is interesting to share here is, as you can see, they not only propose a desktop, but they also propose a specific mobile release, and they also propose on push on application, a mobile app. Okay. So this is a major point. Okay, because why? Because when you do B2B commerce, it's important to be present on all the channels, not only on the desktop, but also on the mobile. Also, sometimes, if makes sense, on the application. Why not on the tablet? And of course, all these channels they converge at the end to propose a single and a unique customer experience. Last point I want to mention here is they also propose and they also use their e-commerce platform to push new services. Okay, in that case, they propose an inventory management service. So it's a kind of consulting service, and they use, of course, this platform, this online platform, to push new services. So it's a good way to sell product, but it's also a good way to sell services. Okay, let's move to the next one. The next one is Midwest Dental. Midwest Dental. So as you can imagine with the name Midwest Dental, they are active in the dental business, and they work with a lot of dentists, especially in the Midwest in the US. What is interesting here is to show the account management. Okay, you can't see directly on the screenshot, but account management is a critical function in the B2B domain. Why? Because you need to be able to define, for instance, if you are the administrator of your company, you want to define some credit limit for different categories of buyers. You want to approve on having some workflows regarding the approval of the orders. Sometimes we talk about orders representing millions of USD. So makes a lot of sense in that context to be able to push some settings and configuration and to propose some configurations in order to give to the administration or at the company level the way to customize and propose different types of user experience depending on the rights and depending on the workflow you want to implement. So very important point, very critical function, which is around account configuration for the business user. All the platforms we present today are successful. It's important to share today. They are successful and they already do business online with this platform, with this e-commerce platform. Okay, let's continue with Thermo Fisher. Okay, Thermo Fisher, you probably know this company. Thermo Fisher. They are very active in medical equipment, but also scientific instruments and so on. So it's a multi-billion US dollar company worldwide. Okay, not only in the US. What is important to share with you here today is they propose two different platforms. The first one is FisherSCI.com and the second one is ThermoFisher.com. On FisherSCI.com, 70% of their business is done online. We talk about more than 5 billion US dollar. Okay, so it's major. It's not a teeny thing in terms of market share, and really the online channel is now the dominant model to act and to interact with the company in terms of buying process. Here you can see they reuse all the codes and all the culture coming from the B2B domain. As you can see, for product information is key. And in this example, you can see they propose product descriptions, they propose all the attributes, they propose also a lot of images, and they propose on top of that also some scientific content. Okay, and you can see on the last screenshot, they propose a lot of videos regarding scientific content on how to use the product and in which context and in which domain you can use the product. So we talk about photos, of course, but more and more we talk about videos because it's a good way to show the usage of the product. And this will move to the next example. The next example is a very famous company is General Electric. So General Electric healthcare business. It's also a major initiative because they propose online all the key features and all the key elements expected on a B2B e-commerce platform regarding product information, but they go one step beyond with a lot of videos to show how to use the product. Okay, even for an healthcare product, even in the healthcare business, really makes sense to push and to propose a good content regarding product information. And they go also one step further, one step beyond, with the ability to test and try the product. What is a major difference between B2B and B2C? One of the major differences is you know the customers in a B2B context. So you can completely propose this kind of new experience, for instance, giving access or proposing to a customer a trial or a test or to use as a demo the product for a couple of days or a couple of weeks. Why? Because you know your customer. So in this example with GE Healthcare really makes sense because they go with the video, of course, but they go also with the demos, with the trials, and with the way to test the product. This is something possible in this context. Okay, let's continue with Moons. Okay, we continue to talk about product information. Product information is key, but product selection and product navigation. Moons platform is one of the top 3 stepper motor manufacturer in the world. Okay. And they propose the platform in a lot of countries, different languages, different currencies. But at the end, it's a single platform behind with the ability to manage in a lot of different contexts and different countries. What the complexity? One of the complexity is how to navigate within the catalog when you are in a B2B context. So it's not always easy. And Moons, what they propose some features, some crucial features around navigation. 2 main ones I want to highlight today. The first one is facet navigation. Facet navigation, what does it mean? It means the ability to filter and to select some features to facilitate the navigation. For instance, you want to select only some suppliers, only some categories of product, only the product between this pricing and this pricing. So it's a good way to especially when you have millions or a lot of SKUs. It's a good way to navigate and to accelerate the navigation and the ordering process or the ordering contact for your customers. First one, fast navigation. And second one, as you can see in the screenshot, it's comparison. How can I compare different products? What are the main differences between the different products? And the last one is what we call in a lot of industries SDS, so meaning safety data sheets. Of course, on the platform, you can give access to the safety data sheets. It's important because what is the usual way to do for your customers? But they call the sales representative to ask the SDS. Okay, so instead of, I would say, losing or wasting time giving access to the SDS, a good way to do is to give the full access online regarding product information. So as you can understand, product information is really key. You really need to have a good catalog and a good organization of this catalog to be able to propose a good and professional customer experience. Okay. Let's move to another initiative in the chemical business, which is Univar. Univar, what we want to highlight today with Univar is also a different mechanism around navigation, product navigation. So of course, they propose beyond traditional, I would say, navigation. Okay, they propose to select, of course, countries, continents, and so on, and they propose search, either search by formula or search by product. So what is it? It's a kind of advanced search module. Okay, where you can search by formula, we are in the chemical business, or search by product with reference name, categories, suppliers, and so on. So one more time, super important to, let's say, to have a strong focus and strong attention on the search in order to give them access to a good customer experience. You can, of course, depending on the product you select, request a quote, request a documentation. On this platform, you are not obliged to buy online, and this is also a major difference with the B2C domain. Sometimes you just want to give access to the catalog. So it's usually the first step. Start with a product information management, product catalog online. Okay? And even if your customers, for different reasons, they don't want or they don't transact online, you can create the connection, you can register and keep the history of this transaction, and then finalize the transaction between the sales rep and the customer. But one more time, the beginning of the transaction is online with the product catalog. Let's move now to an initiative done in Singapore, which is a Fair Price. So you all know Fair Price. Fair Price are of course active in the B2C domain, but they also have a specific platform for B2B customers. Who are their B2B customers? They could be restaurants, canteens, companies, malls, and so on. An interesting functionality is a shopping list, the multi-shopping list. You could completely apply the same in a lot of businesses like construction, industrial businesses. So it's not only for food and beverage business. What is the multi-shopping list? Multi-shopping list, if for instance you want to create a shopping list for, I don't know, day-to-day business, you want to create a shopping list and register a shopping list for special event or special meals. You want to create a shopping list for special type of customers or special type of suppliers. So this is a good way, this is a good practice existing on B2B domain, is the ability to propose a multi-shopping list management. And of course, it's a basic, but track and trace module is super important. Know where the product is it still in the warehouse, or is it now taken in charge by the delivery company, the delivery logistics? So it's super important to give access and to give full visibility regarding track and trace. And this is of course a basic in B2B. But keep in mind, multi-shopping list and track and trace are important features in a lot of B2B context. Let's continue with Conrad. Conrad is a European company acting in electronic and businesses. So their main presence is in Germany. And what is interesting is they propose a marketplace, meaning the products sold on the platform are not only products powered by Conrad, but because Conrad is a distributor and also manufacturer for part of the product, but they also give access to directly to some reseller catalog. And the good point or the interesting point is to do a very popular and more popular approach, which is what we call the drop shipping. What is drop shipping? Drop shipping is the direct connection between the final customer, your B2B customer, and the supplier. What is the value of this approach? The value of this approach is you can skip the warehouse management as a company. In that case, for Conrad, they don't have to manage the stock because the stock is directly managed by the supplier, by the reseller, and they can propose directly online their catalog. Another interesting point is around price management. So you can and you need sometimes to propose dynamic pricing online. Why? Because we are in a B2B environment, and in a B2B environment, depending on the quantity, the price could change. Depending on the customer, also the price could change. So it's important to be able to manage this complexity and to have the agility to manage this kind of models. Last point on the last screen is, as you can see, you have a lot of different payment methods. Okay, the first one is banking, the second one is credit card, debit card, PayPal, prepaid, postpaid, account management. So they have around 10 payment methods proposed online. It doesn't mean you have to propose these 10 payment methods, but you definitely need to take into account the specificities regarding the payment. And in the B2B business, there are obviously some which are different compared to other businesses. Okay, so Conrad with the B2B is, I think, B2B marketplace is a kind of new model, onboarding directly your product, but also onboarding items coming from third parties, but sold on your platform. Okay, it's exactly what does Amazon with Amazon B2C or Amazon Business in the B2B domain. Let's finish the presentation with a more the cases with a more disruptive one. The more disruptive one is GoTrade Direct. I see in the attendees people coming from the aerospace business, so you probably know GoTrade Direct. GoTrade Direct is a marketplace for aero product, aero items powered by Honeywell. Okay. So the interesting point regarding this initiative is, why did they decide to become a marketplace, proposing not only Honeywell product, but also product coming from their competitors or from different suppliers, different categories? Why they did that? Why they did this initiative? They did this one because first, it's a massive and major business globally. It represents more than 5 billion USD in terms of business. It's highly fragmented and nearly nothing is done online. So there is definitely an advantage for the first mover, and this is the strategy behind. The second point is they decide to launch this initiative because they think if we don't do that, someone else will do that. And definitely, we don't highlight today some cases regarding this new, let's say, kind of competitors coming, but in a lot of businesses, could be chemicals, could be industrials, could be constructions, you have a lot of new startups emerging in this domain, and their role or their ambition is to, let's say, disintermediate or change the model, change the business model, and which is a major threat for a lot of suppliers, for a lot of B2B companies, traditional B2B companies. So the idea for GoDirectTrade is definitely to take advantage of this digital revolution to propose new models. As you can see, so you can buy a lot of products. So we are in a maintenance and repair and operations model, MRO business, and you can buy product, you can buy new product, you can buy old products. What is super important in this domain is to create the confidence, to create the trust. That's why they propose a pure B2C functionality, which is comments and ratings. So you could imagine, okay, comments and ratings are definitely not for B2B, but yes, makes sense in some context to propose comments and ratings because it's a good way to increase to improve, let's say, the assurance, the reassurance level for your customer. And the second one is track and trace. So they propose a kind of new track and trace using blockchain. Why it's super important in this business? Because you want to know, of course, obviously, all the history of what happened regarding the item, because we are in the aerospace business. So it's very important to track and trace very carefully and with, let's say, something more official and accountable. So that's why they use a kind of blockchain mechanism to do that. That's all for the example and the successful use case initiatives. So as you can see, depending on the business, depending on their position on the value chain, all of them have very interesting approach and very interesting models. All of them presented today are successful. So definitely makes sense to invest, especially in a COVID-19 and post-COVID-19 context, because as mentioned by John, it will be definitely an accelerator. One more point to finish is around change management and roadmap. Change management is definitely the key. To be honest, we did a lot of projects in the B2B domain, B2B commerce domain, and the main reason why they fail is because lack of change management. So it's super important to onboard sales representatives. They are key in this journey. How to engage them. It's super important to think about it because it's a tough question, because they could be in opposition, they could be in conflict with the digitalization approach. They could think, of course, that they could lose in terms of importance. So it's super important, super important and crucial to onboard them in the journey. A good practice, of course, is to identify who are the gurus and who are the sales team supporting the change, to ask them and to onboard them as an ambassador of the business and of the digital transformation. We can move to the next slide, John. Okay. Of course, it's not only important to onboard sales team, even if they are really the major point to take into account. We have a lot of methodologies on how to onboard them, but it's really important to keep in mind this point, because it's definitely not the technical. It's not the technology who is the major issue and the major challenge regarding B2B digital commerce. The major challenge is around change management. So we talk about sales representative, but I need also to highlight regarding management level on executive level, define KPI, define incentives, how you want to monitor the performance. It's super crucial and super strategic to onboard them and to have a good monitoring, good KPIs to monitor the level of adoption of the platform. What is recommended is to start with something quite incitative, but why not in a second or in a third step to put some things mandatories. For instance, for small orders could make sense, or small customers could make sense to say at a moment, okay, now you have to use the online platform. We have a lot of customers doing that more and more. Saying, okay, for the major and the largest customers, we don't use the online channel because sales rep are super important. But for the small customers and small amount of orders, we can completely push them to use the digital platform. Let's finish now with the roadmap. The roadmap, okay, we just tried here to identify what could be the main steps. So of course it depends on your business, it depends on your industry, it depends on the maturity of your company, it depends of a lot of let's say different factors. Okay, but the usual, I could say, journey is divided in 5 steps. Sometimes you can start directly with the step 3. Sometimes you can continue only in step 1. That's why I say this is something to be analyzed depending on your business. The first step is what we call the PIM only approach. PIM is product information management or product catalog management. In that case, it's a non-transactional website, and we just want to create the relationship between your sales team and your customer, but the finalization, the completion of the transaction is done offline, is not done on the platform. Okay. Makes sense in some industries to be PIM only, or to have a PIM only or a PCM only strategy. Second model is e-ordering. Okay, you can place order online, but the manual approval, there are some manual approval and some manual processes done offline. So basically what you do, you register and you do the transaction online, but the real transaction is not done online. It's more something which is registered online, and then the transaction is finalized offline. The third step is a full e-commerce approach, including payment and tracking. So you do, let's say, the end-to-end cycle regarding order processing and order management with the digital e-commerce platform. The next one is e-commerce integrated. This is not something presented in the different examples, but of course, it's important to integrate your e-commerce platform on both sides. On internal side with your CRM, okay, on some examples we presented before, okay, they integrate with their sales tool and their sales solution, the e-commerce platform. Why? Because it's a good way to do product recommendation, to push some notifications and so on. So think about it, integrate with your CRM, the e-commerce platform. It exists. You have now a lot of APIs and different solutions existing on the market to integrate with your CRM. On the opposite side, on your customer side, B2B customer side, some of them prefer to place the orders through the ERP. Okay, so in that case, a good way to do is to integrate the e-commerce platform and propose the integration between your e-commerce platform with third-party solutions like ERP, for instance, to be able to place some orders. But it's on customer side, and in that case, the effort is done on the work has to be done on your client side, so it's only for major customers. And the last model is a marketplace model. So in that case, you open a platform. Not only to your product, but also to third-party product, even for sometimes for your competitors' product. And also you open the platform to new logistic models in order to give access and to propose an outstanding customer experience. So marketplace could make sense in some businesses, but in that case, it's more a kind of reinvention of your business or a new kind of business you want to launch, but makes sense in a lot of domains. And the example presented with Honeywell is very interesting. But to be honest, most of the initiatives in this domain are powered by new players, by startups. Okay, and it's a little bit a pity to see not so many traditional B2B companies not acting or not trying to launch this kind of initiative, because it could really make sense in a lot of domains. Okay, so keep in mind, PIM, e-ordering, e-commerce, full e-commerce integration on marketplaces are 5, let's say, different business model, a potential business model for B2B companies. Let's finish now with the last slide. It's exactly 5 p.m., so it's perfect. 6 p.m., sorry. It's perfect. So the last slide, okay, just if you had to keep in mind a couple of messages. First one, I hope it was quite clear in what we explained. Think and integrate B2C expectations. B2B buyer, never forget that B2B buyers, they're standard, and the thing they have in mind when they talk about digital commerce, they think about their B2C experience. Second point, of course, take into account B2B specificities. They exist in the different omni-channel platforms present on the market, so they exist out of the box. So it's not so complex and so difficult to launch a new digital commerce project for B2B companies, because most of the solutions they propose all the features expected, all the specific features expected in B2B context. Next one is PIM and PCM. PIM and PCM is the foundation of omni-channel strategy. So think about catalog, think about product. It's super important to have a good organization, good structure, to have all the attributes regarding the product information. Usually the information existing in your ERP are not enough. You need to push more, you need to give access to more. It could be images, it could be attributes and so on. But this is more an internal task to prepare on your side, but it's very important because at the end, the navigation is all around product, all around services, all around options, add-ons, and so on. So product is really key in this digital customer journey. And last one, think about the most appropriate model. Is it PIM only? Is it catalog only? Is it e-commerce, simple e-commerce? Is it advanced e-commerce? Is it marketplace? But it's important to define, select, and choose the right business model for your B2B digital commerce initiative. This is the end of the presentation. We can now switch to the Q&A session. Okay, so we already have some questions. Okay, what are the few key technologies that are critical to adopt the proposed methodology? Example, API, APP development path. I would say all of them. Vikash, thank you for your question. All of them are critical, but of course, cloud now is a no-brainer. Okay, really makes sense to invest in the cloud domain, especially in a post-COVID-19 context, as mentioned by Jean. But all of them are key. After, it depends, of course, of your specific IT landscape. But it's important, yes, to start with a good, let's say, IT photo regarding what exists within your company and what you can do regarding this type of solutions. Second question from Pierce: what is your experience of trade credit on B2B commerce platform? Is it generally done well? What isn't done well? Yes, most of the platform, they propose trade credits. After, the complexity of this domain is the rules could be very, very different depending on the business, because the amount are not at all the same. Really depend on the type of businesses. But most of them are most of them are available on the main platforms. What is important to keep in mind is sometimes, and this is a domain, we have to do some customization regarding the integration of this let's say trade credit limit and trade credit management. Another question is about old age EDI. Okay, so old age EDI, yes, it fits with B2B e-commerce model, because of course you're right. EDI continue to exist, and it's always a significant channel regarding B2B ordering. The best way to do in that case is to integrate and to propose some kind of smooth and easy integration between e-commerce solutions, e-commerce platforms on B2B. And yes, it exists on most of the solutions present on the market. Our next question is: how shall we involve our client and business partners in a B2B e-commerce project? So maybe for this question, John, if you want to take this one, how to involve our client and business partners in a B2B e-commerce project?
Yep. Well, two different ways here. The first one is related to the clients, and the second one is business partners. I'd say one of the most important things when it comes to B2B e-commerce is probably anything around workflow and processes automation, and to make sure that at the beginning of your project, you're scoping correctly what is going to be the user experience like, or what are going to be the expectation. Then you need to involve basically these clients and business partners from the very beginning of your project, which is pretty much the scoping phase. And that's where you're going to define all the functional and technical requirements. So yeah, the sooner the better is probably the best answer I can give.
Okay, thank you, John. And last question is: how do you tie up the efficiencies of B2B channel with the supply chain management methodology? Yes, this is of course something to take into account. Yeah, B2B channel with supply chain management. After, it depends the methodology you want to use. Okay, I wouldn't say there is a single answer for this part. So there are a lot of different potential models to do this kind of integration. That's all for the Q&A. Do you have any other questions? I hope it was interesting, and it was you learn a lot with these examples and let's say best practices existing and coming from the B2B e-commerce business. So feel free to contact us, of course, if you want to engage or if you want to start to think about a potential digital commerce project. We did a lot in the region, in APAC region. We did in a lot of different industries, logistics, food and beverage, materials, industrials, and so on. So feel free to contact us. And on the last slide, I think you have my coordinates. Okay, so on the last slide, you have my coordinates. Maybe you can switch to the last slide, John. Okay, so yes, thomas.alex@kerus.com. So feel free to contact me. And just for us to let's say to measure a little bit the level of interest of the meeting, if you found this meeting interesting, if you can just raise your hand and click on the button raise your hand, will be a good way for us to see if it was interesting or not, and to measure a little bit the level of satisfaction. It's a little bit manual, okay, but it's a good way for us to know if you learn or not, or and of course, if you have some specific expectations, feel free to contact us. In 1 hour, we can't manage everything, and we can't cover all the topics, but feel free also to contact us if you want to have the registered presentation, because of course this presentation was registered. Thank you very much, and talk to you very soon. Oui, un instant.